Boston is making headlines across the nation today for all the wrong reasons. After last night's Red Sox game, Orioles center fielder Adam Jones told multiple media outlets that a fan threw a bag of peanuts at him and that he was called the N-word a handful of times. The Red Sox released a statement first thing this morning apologizing, saying in part, the Red Sox have zero tolerance for such inexcusable behavior, and our entire organization and our fans are sickened by the conduct of an ignorant few. Governor Charlie Baker was quick to apologize as well, saying the behavior was unacceptable and shameful, sentiments Boston Mayor Marty Walsh echoed.
Something like this doesn't belong in sports. This is something that we're not going to tolerate in our city.
The worst part of this, though, it wasn't just last night. Adam Jones says he's been berated by racist fans at Fenway before, and he's certainly not the only one to make this claim. Remember this from SNL's Michael Che before the Super Bowl?
I just want to relax, turn my brain off, and watch the blackest city in America beat the most racist city I've ever been to.
So, Boston, do we have a problem? Joining me to discuss the state of racial relations in the city are Tanisha Sullivan. She's the newly elected president of the Boston NAACP. Congratulations and good to meet you, Tanisha. Ira Jackson, senior VP at Brandeis. He served under Governor Dukakis and Mayor Kevin White during the busing controversy. Good to see you, Ira. And Peter Roby, of course, the athletic director at Northeastern. Peter, it's great to see you, too. Peter, let me start with you. Did this incident say something about the city or simply say something about one racist fan?
Yeah, I think it's more of a commentary on an ignorant fan that, there's no place for a person like that in the stands. And, fans is short for fanatic, and sometimes they're fanatical in all the wrong ways, and this is a perfect example of that.
But you travel all over the country. Yeah. Are there as many stories of this nature
this
in other major American cities?
This isn't isolated to Boston. I mean, people get irate, they lose their cool, they want to hurt and say something hurtful to a person of color, and that's a word that's at the tip of their tongue many times, and it's unfortunate.
Peter thinks, Ira, it's about that individual, not about the city. You agree with him?
I think we've come a long way, Jim, but I think we've got a long way to go.
What does that mean?
I think it means that we still have income inequality based on race that's breathtaking in this town. Average white family has $257,000 worth of wealth. Do you know what the average black wealth is?
$700.
$700. So 31% black home ownership, 68% white home ownership. Lots of segregation. We've come a long way since bus sales.
But so you seem to be saying this is the environment which breeds this kind of thing. Is that where you're going?
I think we still have a long way to go.
Which is exactly what you said. I read what you said in the Globe today. There's something about the climate that makes people think it's okay. What is there about the climate that makes people think it's okay, Tanisha?
I think, one of the things for us to be mindful of with this particular situation is that whoever these individuals are, they were spewing these slurs in a crowded stadium, in the bleachers. And so there were other people around, people who presumably love and care about this city and want to believe the best of this city. And yet we have heard of no reports from other fans last evening of these racial slurs actually being hurled.
So are you saying, sort of hearkening back to Peter Roby, well, it's not one, it's one in a surrounding group, or are you saying what he seems to be saying, there's something bigger going on here that this feeds into? I mean, by the way, the guy could have been 6'5", totally drunk out of his mind, and made people scared to take him on for fear that their kid's going to get hit. Who knows?
So I think it's both. I don't think it's an either or. I absolutely believe that this incident highlights that there are people among us who have these deep-rooted feelings about people. And so, it's what's on the tip of the tongue is what's in the heart. So that for me is of concern.
I think several good things that. One, Sam Kennedy issued that statement, President Red Sox like this.
Terrific.
Mayor, Governor. The mayor a couple of weeks ago was with us on Boston. What's that again?
Rob Manfred.
I didn't know that. Commissioner of Major League Baseball. A couple of weeks ago, the mayor was with us on Boston Public Radio at the library, and it was right after Michael Che had not only made the original comment, but then reaffirmed it, I think, when he spoke at BU.
Yes,
and exactly. I found that interesting. The mayor was not at all defensive, as I assumed he'd be. Here's Mayor Walsh.
It's disturbing when you hear something like that, and the fact that he has clearly has had bad experiences in our city. We've indirectly reached out to him. I'd love to sit down and talk to him. He's had clearly some bad experiences in the city and in this state because I think it's more than Boston. But we're going to, hopefully at some point, I'd love to sit down and talk to him about it and express what we've done in the city and the things that we've done over the last 3 years with the race dialogues, with the diversity office. And that won't erase his experience, but what it will do will help us understand better.
You're nodding as seemingly in approval, but there have got to be some things that leaders should be doing that they're not doing. Are they? And if there are such things, what are they? I don't mean just about this incident. I mean like the kinds of things Ira was talking about.
Sure. I mean, there's leaders all over the city of Boston that are trying to encourage diverse perspectives and inclusion and appreciation of difference, whether it's the presidents of the universities that populate the city and the greater Boston area, or it's corporate or whatever. We need more people in the boardrooms. We need more people in the C-suites. We need more people running the hotels and running the hospitals that bring a different perspective to it. It doesn't have to be just people of ethnic difference, but lots of ways that we're different.
But you seem to think we're making decent
progress.
progress.
I've been in the Boston market for 35 years, and so I've seen the changes, and I'm not willing to say that we're there yet, but we've made lots of progress, and people are much more appreciative of each other, and we've got a minority majority now in the city of Boston. So there's
but see, that's he worked for Kevin White. He was his chief of staff. White men ran the city then, and now we have majority and minority city, and white men run the city now. I'm not saying universally, but is there a dramatic change on that front? Ira Jackson, Peter Roby, and Tanisha.
Well, John Barrows was featured in the Globe the other day because he brokered the deal to bring GE to Boston.
He helped broker the deal, right?
So he's in a position of authority, and there's others like that, I think, that are of the people of color in the city of Boston.
You buying that, Ira Jackson?
To a degree, we're the only state that's had a black governor, a black chief justice, and a black United States senator. So we've obviously made huge progress. We're much more tolerant, much more inclusive.
You're the one that just said you're the one that said net assets of a black family in Boston is 700 and $250,000 for a white family.
Yeah, and the most unequal city in the country
we're also coming off the black president for 8 years, and yet the country is very divided in terms of some of these issues.
Well, because some people naively think you vote for a black guy for president, and racism ends in this.
Fewer black-owned businesses in Boston.
They're mad about the fact that we had a black president.
Maybe that's true.
Right.
So both of these gentlemen, I think, are saying we're, in small steps, baby steps, is that movie, What About Bob said. But do you think we're making the kind of progress we need to be making? We are a majority minority. Why not?
We're absolutely not making the kind of progress we need to, and I think part of the reason is because we have not been willing to confront the institutional and systemic racism that exists in this city. The reality is, and I completely agree, the wealth gap, the generational wealth gap that exists in this city is pervasive. And it's not enough to have more black and brown faces in city hall seats when those black and brown faces don't have the power to effectuate the change, the meaningful change that's needed for people in Roxbury, Dorchester, Mattapan, East Boston to feel true change and transformation in the city.
I'll make you all the czar and czarina of Boston for the moment. How do we make that systemic change? What isn't being done that needs to be done?
A part of it is not being honest with ourselves about where we are. You
think Walsh was pretty honest in that fight
I think that Mayor Walsh is trying. I do believe that he wants to see progress in the city. But no, I don't believe that enough has been done. It's not enough to have a race dialogue when there's not any actionable, meaningful change. When people, whether it's our children in the Boston public school system, still suffering from systemic, perpetual racial achievement and opportunity gaps, or it is the reality of unemployment in the city for
double
people,
for blacks over whites, 13 to 6% essentially.
Exactly.
Fewer black-owned businesses in Boston today than 20 years ago, and we've experienced unprecedented economic wealth. And
so why are you so optimistic? You're the one that rattled off all these statistics that are horrifying, and you're saying we're making...
Well, because it's Boston strong. I mean, this is a great community, and if we got serious about what Tanisha's talking about, systemic and structural racism and discrimination, we've got a long way to go, but we're just beginning to warm up. I also think we have to remember our history. Pumpsie Green, Bill Russell, there's been a lot of discrimination in Boston, and busing in Boston was our Selma. That was only 40 years ago, Jim.
That's right.
I don't think you brush that over or sweep it In the
And that's where it's got to start.
Yeah.
It's got to start with equal access to great education that will lead to better jobs, and then people can empower themselves with their opportunity to create
You ever
wealth.
experienced what Adam Jones experienced in the city?
Not like that.
Have you?
No, not in that manner. However, my dad has. I can appreciate the conversations
city?
about in the city, the conversations about busing. My dad started working for BPS in the 70s, right after the DSEG order.
schools, yeah.
And part of his responsibility was to make sure that young people could get into South Boston from Roxbury and Dorchester without being harmed. So, yes.
So I asked Tanisha what she'd do if she was running the show. What would you do if you were running the show? Even though you seem to think we're on a slow but steady course, what would you do?
I try to equalize the educational opportunities in the city of Boston. The kids that grow up, kids of color, have to have the same opportunities to get a quality education that anybody else that's white would get, whether they're in the suburbs or in the city.
Well, that means that white families have to decide to stay in the city schools, too, and not rush out to the suburbs, doesn't it?
No. Why does it matter whether there's white kids in the school or not? Whatever kids are in the school, they should get a quality education, and we need to figure out and define what a quality education is and make sure they get access to it.
How about you?
Yeah,
Bookends
I
from
agree.
busing to this.
Preschool education, I think, is the next frontier, and we're not investing enough in it, but Mayor Walsh is doing what he can. Charlie Baker's got $18 million, $28 million more in the budget for it, but that's where it all begins.
Great equalizer.
Yeah.
Transportation, affordable housing, great education, all those things are things that still are needed in the city.
Open hearts and a little bit of recognition that these issues exist. It's not just one racist fan, one meathead in the bleachers. It's structural and it's systemic. It's
That's
very
right.
systemic.
And I
You have the
do,
last
and
word,
I do
Tanisha.
believe that, here in the city of Boston, we have a rich tradition when it comes to our sports. Our sports teams are beloved. And so hopefully this will serve as a catalyst for us to actually get to some meaningful, actionable change here in the city. That this will not be, and that this will not stall what is happening, but actually, again, propel
A good
it.
first step would be for other fans not to question whether it really happened last night. That would be a
That would
good
be
step,
good.
too.
That would be good.
Tanisha, it's a
Absolutely.
pleasure to meet
Thank
you.
you so
Thanks
much.
so much. Ira, great
Thank
to
you.
see you.
Thank you.
Peter, of course, you as
Always
well.
a pleasure, Jim. Thank you.
Appreciate it.